Welcome to Valor and Virtue. I'm Jim Danielson. Today we have with us Chief Warrant Officer 5, Sequoia Aldridge, United States Marine Corps retired. And we'd like to ask you a bit about yourself. Where are you from? And what led you to join the Marine Corps?
Okay, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And my first introduction to the military was from an Air Force gentleman that came to our class and spoke to us about the Air Force. So I was all set to go into the Air Force. I worked with a recruiter, did everything, and my plans were to be a nurse in the Air Force.
Okay. You really like the uniform?
I didn't know any better. I hadn't yet met a Marine, so I didn't know any better. And so I realized I didn't have the constitution to be a nurse. It takes.
I know what you mean.
Being a nurse is a calling.
Sure.
That's not my calling. But my best friend called me up and she said, I have to introduce you to this Marine that I met and we can go in together. And I didn't know anything about the Marine Corps. But when I met Gunnery Sergeant Anderson, he was so sharp and so articulate. And he was a lot like I am. He was about making it happen. What do you want to do? We can do this. I just was enamored with everything about the Marine Corps. And from that moment, I was sold. And from that point on, it's been, how do I say it? It's like slipping into a pair of comfortable shoes.
Really?
That you just fit. And I've always felt that way about being a Marine. It's just, this is me. I fit.
We've had the opportunity to talk with a number of women who served in the Marine Corps, and they seem to have varying recollections of what Parris Island was like. All the men I've known pretty much say the same thing. Yeah, they're in your face nonstop. And
yes.
How did you experience Parris Island?
Culture shock. The first time when you get off the bus, there's a lot of yelling and, you just kind of herdle along like cattle. And it was just one of these experiences where it's like, okay, I'm just trying to survive. Some things about it were very challenging, like learning how to drill.
Right.
I remember making one drill movement and the drill instructor called me Michael Jackson. I don't know. Probably wasn't.
Well, you didn't hear anything like your military left or something like that?
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, and the chaplain's comment made a great impression on me. And I think that's what saved me throughout my entire Marine Corps career also, is listen to what they're saying and not how it's being said.
Yeah, that's excellent advice.
Everything they say is they're yelling.
One thing that occurred, like the guys in my platoon when I was going through, the biggest mistake they would make is they wouldn't listen to what the drill instructors were saying and do it just the way they said it.
Yes.
And that will get you some attention you don't want.
Absolutely. Yes, that will definitely get you some attention. And that's why his comment was so helpful, is that don't listen to how it's being said. Pay attention to what they're telling you to do. And that obviously saved me.
Now, how long were you enlisted before you became a warrant officer?
For 13 years.
Oh, wow.
So I was selected to the rank of gunnery sergeant in 1999. I was promoted and I was a gunnery sergeant for 4 whole months and then got appointed to warrant officer.
Is it good? This gets to something I'm just curious about this because I never knew it myself, having served in the Marine Corps. Can you apply to become a warrant officer, or do you have to be selected?
Oh, it's an application process.
Oh, okay. So
you have to have so many years of service, and it's usually 8 years of service, and you have to be a sergeant at least. And then you have to apply and compete amongst all your peers. So when I was considering, well, first of all, when I was a Lance Corporal, I heard a Marine talk about this person, and he was just so excited about this person and how awesome they were. They got selected to gunny and to warrant officer at the same time. And it just sounded so...
You didn't realize they were telling your future?
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize they were telling my future. But I just thought that how awesome that is and how that Marine just seemed like he just admired that individual so much, and that just stuck with me. But I waited several years to apply because as a warrant officer, you're a technical expert. The expectation is that as a technical expert, you know your job better than anyone else. So I wanted to ensure that before I ever applied, I felt like a technical expert.
This is music to my ears because I was saying to students for many, many years, there's no substitute for knowing what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you wanted to make sure that when I step into this role, I'm ready.
Without a doubt. I wanted to make sure that I knew all aspects of administration. And if anyone asked me a question, I knew my job and I felt very competent. So,
now, is it 1 through 5 warrant officer?
1 through 5.
Okay. Is there I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. Is there a set kind of role that warrant officers serve that wouldn't be served by enlisted or commissioned?
So as a warrant officer, the premise is that you are a technical expert. So you do this. So let's say I was a personnel officer. So as a personnel officer, you could not grab me and say, hey, Chief Warrant Officer Aldridge, I want you to work in training. I need you to be the training ops person. For a unrestricted officer, so we're considered restricted. An unrestricted officer, a commander that person comes in, they can use them any way they want.
Oh, okay. All right. So you have, if I may say it this way, a dedicated responsibility.
Yes.
Now, as a personnel officer, do you oversee people?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. So you have...
make them do bends and thrusts?
That would be called hazing today.
Oh, okay.
in today's Marine Corps. So you have a huge leadership role because you have subordinates that work for you. You write fitness reports. So you have the same, many of the same responsibilities as a unrestricted officer would have.
Now, do you feel like you have a satisfactory level of professional freedom? You know, like I was a corporal, so but as an enlisted guy, you kind of like you do what you're told, but it's a lot better to be able to decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as a warrant officer, you're in charge. So
right, okay. That's
your office, and those are your Marines. So you're responsible for how well or how poorly they do. You have a huge amount of freedom in your job.
Did you do any training?
So after the basics, so when you get appointed, you go to the basic school or TBS at Quantico where they do all the officer training.
Okay.
So unrestricted officers, their training is, I want to say, is 6 months or more. And for the warrant officer basic course is 3 months.
Okay. So
because you don't have to teach us how to, what to wear. You don't have to teach customs and courtesies. You already know those things. So it's a cram course in combat training. You learn land nav.
Oh, cool.
You do combat in defensive, offensive positions. You do all the physical requirements, and you learn some leadership information.
Did they say anything about moss growing on the north side of a tree? That was in the Boy Scout handbook. I don't know.
No, but they do try to teach you how to read a map and, use a compass. And so you have some technology out there, so you don't need to worry about where the moss is growing.
Oh, okay.
But not everyone understands land nav. And I was fortunate enough to have done a lot of land nav in California before I ever went to the basic school as part of our training when I was stationed there every 2 weeks, kind of almost like a reservist.
Oh, really?
So, so that was beneficial because as a enlisted member at a formal academy, you would do land navigation in groups. But as an officer, you do land nav on your own.
On your own, okay.
So,
well, now, as a warrant officer, did you train Marines? Or against supervisor?
So part of supervision is training.
Okay.
So,
right. Well, see, now I'm revealing how little I know, but that's fine because the question I wanted to get at was, if you teach in universities for a long time, the question you'll get a lot is, over the years, have you noticed any changes in the freshmen coming up from high school? Are they different? And you would have seen a lot of Marines over, I believe you were on active duty for 30 years.
Yes.
Over those years, and being that you were in a supervisory position as a chief warrant officer, did you see differences in the kinds of people coming in or their attitudes or the way they thought?
And honestly, I want to say not really. Not really. I think we had a variety of you always have a percent that is going to have some type of misconduct and then you're going to have a certain percentage that are your go-getters, that they want to learn everything and they want to do everything that are very competitive and want to do well. And then you're always going to have that percent that's kind of in the middle. They want to come in, do their job. So my goal as I would just say as a leader and as an administrator was to make sure that, first of all, you know your job, but you know what the expectations are. Mm-hmm. And to push them to understand that you don't operate as an individual, we operate as an office. So everything works together. And these are the Marine Corps expectations. My expectation is for us to exceed what these expectations are. So if the Marine Corps says it needs to be done at this level, it's kind of like a physical fitness test is the example I'll always give.
Sure, yeah.
So a passing PFT is a third-class physical fitness test. Every Marine...
Like at least 3 pull-ups or something like that?
The bare minimum
you
can pass. The Marine Corps goal for you is a first class.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, there's a requirement. The expectation is first class. But I'm going to say your goal should always be a 300.
A friend of mine years ago used to joke about state employees, saying the state employee motto is, we strive to meet minimum standards.
Oh, God, yeah, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah, I don't even know it's been so long. I don't know what it is now. Do you still have to run 3 miles?
Everyone has to run 3 miles. The women, when I came in, we ran 1.5 miles. And I want to say that changed in the mid to late 1990s.
Now, these young Marines who come in, they're the same generation as young people who will go to college.
Oh, yeah.
And you can notice over the years that they're decreasingly prepared for college level work when they come in. And is that true of the young Marines?
I think the requirements are different. Mm-hmm. So when when young folks come into the Marine Corps, especially the Marine Corps, is that we're looking for your level of physical fitness, your aptitude to learn your job. And because there's a vetting process when they're in their MOS school, so you have to pass your MOS school. If you don't, then you can be transitioned into another one. So by the time they come to us, and we actually see that Marine for the first time, they've had some training already.
Okay.
But for college, it's a reflection of, I guess, the education system at large.
Right. I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess, a young person, does Parris Island still have that effect? I'm almost 70 now, and I still carry that. Thank you. I still carry the marks of Parris Island. Because that could you come into Parris Island, maybe you wouldn't have gone to college, or maybe you would have and not performed well or whatever. But that experience kind of straightens your spine, don't you think?
I think for some people it does. I think that there is a time period where the environment of Parris Island or San Diego sticks with you. And I think it's sometimes based on the individual. It's very easy to slide back to what's comfortable and normal, depending on what your background is and what your experiences are. And for some people, they slip back into it, and others, I came from my family came from the South, and I had parents, Arkansas,
Okay.
and my family grew up out in the country, and they were hard workers. So before I ever joined the Marine Corps, I had a work ethic.
Right. Of course you would.
So I didn't need the Marine Corps to instill a work ethic in me. I had that.
I struggle with this sometimes because you think when I got to Paris, I wasn't expecting people to be so rude. I was thinking, we'll talk about it. We'll talk it out. And, no, they were right in your face. You had to say, okay, I'm going to go through this and I'm going to accomplish it. And that seems like do you think that it's important? It's a question I've asked over a number of years, and that is, isn't it important in the life of a young person to meet a challenge and overcome it?
Absolutely. It's because that's what builds grit. To me, is if life and everything is handed to you,
right,
then you lose that. I was listening to or reading something about just like a baby bird, is that when that bird is pecking its way out of the shell,
right,
that if you go and you try to help it out and break it to help it come out, you're doing a detriment to that baby bird. That baby bird needs to struggle and peck its way through there. So you have to experience some challenges to build that resilience and that grit that allows you to. The Marine Corps, I loved it, but it wasn't always easy.
Right.
So you have to be able to persevere through those difficult times, and that's what makes you a stronger, better leader and an individual.
Did you like traveling?
I love traveling.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess if you're a natural homebody, the Marine Corps might not be a place for you.
I would agree. If you're a natural home, and I was not a homebody. My family visited family all the time, so we would stay summer. So I was accustomed to not being at home and being away from family. But I loved it, and I didn't mind moving from one place to another at all.
Now, I didn't stay but 4 years, but in the course of your career, and I'm thinking now as you come to the close of it, do you get a sense, or did you get a sense that, I've done what I can do here? Because I've talked to people who'd say, I'd suit up right now all over again if they'd let me.
Oh, you really? No.
Yeah.
When I came to the end of my career, I felt like I had given all I had to offer. And what I'll say is that the giving continues, even after retirement. But there's still Marines that I stay in contact with, and with social media, it's easy to continue to maintain those connections. So I still provide advisement. I'm still a part of the organization. But as an active duty Marine, I felt like, okay, I have given all I have. I have achieved what I set out to achieve. And it's time to let somebody else take the helm. I'm good.
That's interesting, because so there's only there can't be that many, I don't know what the term is for it, but slots for a Chief Warrant Officer 5?
No, it's only 1% of your overall community.
So do you ever, hear Chief Warrant Officer 4 is going, golly, Ned, I wish some of these people.
I remember that when I was coming up in the ranks, they'd ask people, how long are you going to stay in? And I can remember specifically Chief Warrant Officer 5 that I worked with, and people would ask her all the time, man, when are you retiring? And she's like, when I am ready.
Well, that's the perfect answer, actually. So, yes, you keep on giving. Can I ask what you're doing now?
So after I retired, I taught middle school for 3 years.
Did you like that?
I love teaching science. I didn't know that I could do it.
I thought that it would be really sort of, it would feel restrictive to be a public school teacher because the way I've only looked from the outside, but it seems to me that they're, I wish not to offend anybody, but they seem to really be over-administered.
And I would say in some regard, what I felt was successful for me was to teach the basics when I taught a lesson. When I say the basics, like if I'm going to teach about the cell, I need to first provide you with the vocabulary. You need to know what a mitochondria is. You need to know the parts of the cell, what does what. So I need to teach the vocabulary. And that meant you look up the vocabulary words and you need to write them down, the meaning, and actually look them up. And
now you were dealing with young students.
I was dealing with middle school, so 12 to 14.
Now, one of the things that we're keen on, it's Carolina Museum of the Marine, but within it we have the Al Gray Marine Leadership Forum. And one of the things that we're keen on here is teaching people the basic skill of thinking.
Yes.
How to think, not what to think.
Yes.
Are you able to do that with these students at that age?
Yes, but you have to start with something.
No, you start at the beginning and build up. That's good.
You have to start and build up. For example, you give a vocabulary homework, and the word is cell. And some kids would come back and they tell you what a cell is, and some would say it's a 4x4 room where they lock up prisoners.
Yes. I was giving a vocabulary test years and years ago to some people, and you had to define the word priceless, and this kid wrote down there's no tag on it.
Yes. So So how to think. Right. So teaching them to think in terms of the context of what we're talking about.
Right.
So, and I think in some educational arenas, they want to see more collaborative type of learning, and,
sure,
and that has its place.
Yes, it does.
But before I can ever get you into a collaborative environment, I need to first teach you the foundations and the basics of a particular subject. I need to do that first. So that can seem very rote and very boring, but it's very essential. And at the end of the year, for 3 years of teaching, the end of the year, all of my students, all of my classes, their scores were much higher than they were the previous year.
This is terrific. And this is, starting with the proper foundation, right?
Yes.
I read one time about people who would go to school to learn music composition. Their teachers would say, I don't want anything creative out of you. I want you to master writing within these forms. Right, you get the foundation first, then you fly.
Yes. Yeah. It's our son was studied music at North Carolina A&T, and he talked about the difference between the musicians that came there. Some of them could play very well, but couldn't read music.
Right. No, guitarists are notorious for that.
Right. So you need to learn. If you're going to master it, you need to learn the basics first. You need to have that foundation. And from there, you can, now I have something to work with. I'm trying to sort of meander toward, but I'm not doing it very well. There's make some sort of transition. You keep talking about, keep giving, and that's what you do. General Gray used to say, I don't understand this retirement thing. What do we read up? But we have a society that has problems. Yes.
And has problems. And every society does, I think, because we're human and we're flawed. But the America I live in now is not the one I was a boy in. And in some ways it's better, but in some ways it's not.
Right. I agree.
And surely it's true, but I should say this is a question, that one of the ways of addressing some of the problems that plague, especially young people who seem to be like they have a sense of meaninglessness.
Yes. Well, So understanding that the military is a microcosm of society.
Right.
And there will be a percentage of individuals that come in and they see this as an opportunity now to like, wow, okay, I can better myself and I can achieve something in life. And I have a purpose now and a meaning, like you said, to give you some meaning. I belong to something that's a greater calling than I am right now, or I was, and I can help take care of my family. And those individuals come in the military, and they normally, in my experience, the Marines that I have worked with, they come in, they do it very well. And I think it's part of leadership too, is that as a leader, you have some impact because you have to create a culture where you respect these young Marines. Don't look at them and just go, they're young, so your expectations are low. You still have high expectations of them, and you give them responsibility. You have to make them feel like they have meaning and a purpose also.
I agree with you more, but you're talking about as being a leader right now, and we have a publication every month called Front and Center. And we're going through discussions and descriptions of the principles and traits of Marine Corps leadership.
Oh.
And one of the principles, of course, is set the example.
Yes.
Which apparently you do rather well. And that is encouraging because don't you think that's kind of a way of teaching without words?
Absolutely. Because Marines watch you. They pay attention to what you do, good, bad, and indifferent. Sure. And they learn from that. So they will either look at you and go, wow, that's how I want to be. Or they'll go, I'll never treat people that way, or I'll never be that kind of leader. And you want them to look at you as an example of what they want to strive to be or to do. Yeah. Do you think that actually you can take somebody who's sort of self-possessed and self-motivated like you, but you can always sort of put a little more octane in the fuel. Right. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And discipline.
And discipline. It's I just think about part of discipline. I think my best way of looking at it is from physical fitness perspective.
Sure.
Is we all know a PFT is coming, a physical fitness test.
Right. Thank you for saying that out loud. All these letters.
Yes, acronyms.
Yeah, right.
So that 3-mile run, we all have to do it. So the disciplined person gets up at least 3 days a week, and they go out and they run to condition their body.
That's right.
Daily, to be able to perform at a high level during that physical fitness test. The less disciplined person waits a week or two before and attempts to go out and run. But that usually doesn't bode well for them.
What would you say about somebody who keeps doing that? I mean, you say, okay, well, I tried the shortcut, it didn't work.
Yes.
So, but have you ever encountered people who just keep doing the shortcut?
Yes. Some people just don't get it.
Wow.
Because they're, and I think to me, it's in your mindset is that your standards, your standard is in your mind is that I just want to pass this test. But then you're always going to be that person.
But are you talking about somebody whose goal is just to pass?
Just to pass.
Like just get over the bar.
Get over the bar. That person that doesn't have the discipline to get up every morning or a couple times a week and make sure that they're conditioned to be able to run that 3 miles with no problem, and to not only run with no problem, but to get as close to a first class as possible, is very different from the person who says, yeah, well, okay, I'll wait until, it's almost time, or I have to, and then that's when I'll do it.
Have you run into people who would be sort of shortcut takers in the area of physical fitness?
Oh, absolutely.
But diligent everywhere else?
No.
Yeah. Do people like this yet ever become gunnery sergeants? If you don't want to answer the question, I understand completely.
Probably not. Probably not. Because if you take, it's your character. That's what it comes down to, is character.
Yeah.
And at some point, your tenacity in your character, or your lack thereof, will be revealed.
Now, I had drill instructors who would say, you can tell the pride a Marine takes in what he does by the quality of his accessories. Belt buckles, boots, and shoes. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. It's back when we used to spit shine boots. I don't know.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
So
I thought it was just an abomination when the Core Fam thing came in. I thought, oh, come on.
But so when we used to spit shine boots, you would you would actually kind of judge a Marine based on the shine of their boot. You know, you look at their uniform and you start from the top down. Is it wrinkled? Is it pressed? Are their boots dirty? Are their boots spit shine?
Right.
And that left an impression upon you. And even after the Marine Corps transitioned to the tan leather boot, your uniform should still, in my mind, my husband's been in for 40 years and he still irons his camis.
You know that.
And that,
does he iron the bed linens before he changes the sheets?
I wish he did, but no, he won't take it that far. But because that just shows that even as a senior officer with 40 years in the Marine Corps, he cares about his personal appearance.
Now, one of my sons is in the Army. And he's done a lot of things, but he went to combat dive school down in Florida. Excuse me. And I was talking with him on the phone one time about that. And he said, Dad, there's a lot of Marines down here. I said, really? What do you think of them? And he said, I wish the Army was as squared away as those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you think there's a certain kind of, you're a Marine. What are you doing? Tuck your shirt in or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of our image too, is that, Marine, it's like my image of my recruiter is because of that I was just so impressed. He was just well put together, very sharp. And I think we carry that with us, even outside of the Marine Corps, is that.
Excuse me. Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And just how we present ourselves in society is you just stay well put together. And
yes, our CEO will say here that, there are three basic things that the Marine Corps tries to do. One, make Marines. Two, win our nation's battles.
Yes.
And three, return good citizens to
absolutely
back to society. And but one of the things that we think about here is, okay, what is a good citizen? What does that look like? But very importantly, and I think this has been a theme that's gone all the way through this conversation, you have to want to.
You have to want to. And that's what it comes down to, I think, in anything. Because again, either we talked about boot camp, you leave boot camp, and now you have this ethos that have been inbred in you and some pride about being a Marine.
Right.
So how do you sustain that? And part of sustainment has to come inwardly. You have to want to sustain it, because we all come from varied backgrounds. And some people don't come from great backgrounds.
That's true.
And it's so tempting to succumb to the temptations of your former life before you came on active duty, depending on what that is. And some people can resist it and say, I want more for my life. And there's some that fall right back into it.
Well, those are the ones, aren't they? Well, I don't know, who tend not to stay in very long.
Right.
Is that an ongoing process?
That's an ongoing process.
Excuse me. Okay, so 30 years. Would you say at the end of your 30 years, were you experienced? I guess you would have to because of your rank and your experience. But did the Marine Corps, as you could tell, change much between when you went in and when you came out? Excuse me. Of active duty, I guess you're always a Marine, right?
Right, exactly. Always. I would probably yes in some ways, and in good ways. I think when I first came in, it was okay to berate a Marine. And that was a leadership style. And then as we progress over the years, you realize that that's not effective. There's other ways to lead without the yelling and belittling of someone. The physical fitness standards changed.
How?
So for women, as I said, we were originally running 1.5 miles. And so there was more of a combination. So it's not women and men, it's us. It's the Marines. And it's not WM and a male Marine, or WM was a woman Marine.
Right.
But we're all Marines. Therefore, we all have the same standards. So we all run 3 miles. We used to conduct physical fitness separately.
Yes, I remember that.
And that changed. So we all conduct physical fitness together. My first 15-mile hump was a female Marine hump and then a male Marine hump. We each did it separately.
How heavy was the pack?
Probably not heavy at that time. It was probably like 10 pounds.
Okay, did you run it?
No, we just went for a 15-mile hump. That was it. But now we do everything together. So and the change was gradual enough where it wasn't a shock, and they kind of built up to running 3 miles and that requirement. But now the requirement is they've included rowing as an option, which I think is great for people who can't run. So if your knees are shot, I can probably row, but I can't get out there and run 3 miles. Female Marines are doing pull-ups, which is very different.
I've been going to gyms for almost 50 years, and it's a rare thing indeed to see a lady doing a pull-up.
Yes. And so now that's part of the physical fitness test. The uniforms have changed. I think that...
How have they changed?
So before we had the woodland utilities.
Oh, yeah.
They were very stiff, and now we have the digital utility.
Oh, sure. Yes.
The dress blue uniform for female Marines now looks the same as the male Marines. We don't have
a skirt or something.
I think they still have a skirt option, but the blouse is the same as the male Marines with the collar that comes up around, and the cover is the same, where we called it a bucket cover because it kind of looked like a bucket. But now it's the same cover as the male Marines that they have. So they wear that. Just a lot of things about it, the whole culture of the Marine Corps. And I think the Iraq War, OIF and OEF had a lot to do with some of the change also. I think we got away from some of the basics like uniform inspections, barracks room inspections, accountability in those types of ways, that unit leadership, where the staff NCOs put the NCOs in charge of doing those types of things and ensuring that field day was done properly. So those types of things during the war, we kind of got away from it. And I think that was somewhat a detriment to building stronger leaders in the staff NCOs.
That's interesting. I suppose if you have this question, really, units of Marines deploying into combat zones over and over, some of the at-home kind of stuff can sort of fall
garrison
away. Yeah.
So some of those garrison responsibilities kind of fell by the wayside, but that went on for such a long time. So that's 10 years.
But do they still keep on top of haircuts?
Oh, they still stay on top of here because, it's like the Marine Corps is always going to be, and to me, they're going to be focused on that personal appearance.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, but don't you think let's say we were talking about the people who take shortcuts for physical fitness. You see, if they say, okay, well, you when you were a kid, you kind of took shortcuts with everything,
probably,
maybe you had a contest with your brother to see which one could go the longest without brushing his teeth, and that kind of. But then the Marine Corps makes you concentrate on your appearance. You have bearing, you have presence, you have all, and then maybe that could sort of light the fire of physical fitness a little more.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to you as the individual.
You're right. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, what do you care about and what's important to you?
Our kind of motto here is meet the Marine, be inspired. Excuse me. And that's really what we want to do.
Yes.
In the museum and in the Al Gray Marine Leadership Forum is inspire people who weren't Marines, our countrymen who are not Marines, to be better human beings, to be better citizens.
Yeah, and I think the impact of understanding, while I'll say it's about you as the individual.
Sure.
The decisions you make are about you as an individual, but the decisions you make impact, hundreds, maybe thousands of people.
Sure.
Definitely people you interact with on a daily basis. Because someone's when you're instructing students and teaching a class, you got all the eyes on you and they're paying attention to your bearing and how you present the information.
Sure.
And because of the way you present the information to them, it's going to either allow them to learn it and enjoy the subject and really get it, or be turned off by it.
That is absolutely true. And it's one of those sort of, you can learn a skill. Like I had a music teacher one time who said, we can teach you how to make the notes, but we can't teach you how to make music out of it.
Absolutely.
Either you can do that or you can't. And there are these sort of, I don't know if I've never really understood the phrase non-tangible skills, but there's sort of, I have a position, let's say that I'm a warrant officer, and I have people who report to me.
Yes.
And I interact with them, and I might know, I can remember what the leadership principles and traits are, but it's a different thing to embody them and to do it skillfully.
Yes. It's like art and science.
Right.
I think there's an art to leadership.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Yes. Well said. Exactly what I'm trying to get.
Yes.
There's an art to it.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Yes. I can teach you the mechanics, but I can't teach you the art of it. That's something that has to kind of come from within. It's like I took over an office and they had a reputation of doing very poorly.
Mm.
They had evaluations where they were very poor. And in 2.5 years, they went from doing poorly to having the highest administrative scores in the Marine Corps.
Wow. Now, so it takes a while to turn that kind of thing around?
It took 2 years, took months to turn around the perception of the office. And that just was a matter of basic customs and courtesies. People come in, you greet them. There's an expectation when someone walks in that you greet them, you ask to help them. There's an expectation that each of you know your job very well. And as your leader, I'm going to teach you and I'm going to hold you accountable.
Right, of course.
And accountability, I think, well, I don't think I know. I know that accountability inherently breeds responsibility. You see, so if I know that someone's going to check behind me for what I need to do, I'm more inclined to make sure it's done because I know if I don't, there's consequences.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like what you're saying is, okay, I'm a guy who I work in this office, and the standards seem to be, part-time presence, and we get a new leader in, and I kind of don't like my job because it's boring, and it's there's no where's the discipline and whatnot, and then the accountability comes. This is a question. I'm going to build up, and then you say, yeah, I can do more. I can do it more effectively, and then you just sort of catch the flame. That's always question. Then you don't. Accountability needs to be there, but I don't really need it anymore because I'm exceeding the standard, and I'm doing it on my own.
Yes, and that's progressive. It's that if you're accustomed to a very laissez-faire type of accountability, well, they say, that this needs to be done in 5 days, but I'll take 10. And nobody cares.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Then, and then someone comes in and says, hey, at day 3, where's this? Well, it's not due till day 5. Yeah, but I want to know where you're at.
Right. Okay. Boy, would it be embarrassing for somebody to say, well, I haven't started yet?
Yes, very embarrassing. And so once they internalize that and they begin to know that, okay, if I need to have this done because I know that the chief warrant officer is going to ask.
Right.
So you build that expectation. That is how you begin to establish what your expectations are, is by building in systems of accountability and then actually holding them accountable to that information consistently.
So in a very real hands-on way, you contributed to the Marine Corps' effort to return good citizens to society.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Excellent.
Yeah. And you have to make them feel a part of the process and where you're going. So every Friday, I would hold meetings, and I would bring them together, and I would show them what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is that I would show them. What do you call those things where my mind is that you fill out after you experience something and you give reviews? Okay, I would show them reviews of students and their opinions of our office, and they would be horrible. And I would read all the horrible comments to them.
Do you ever look at faces while you're doing it?
Yes, absolutely, because I want you to know what people think of you outside of these doors, and it's not good, and we need to change that. But
that I think that strikes me as an excellent technique. But you don't think it was like at Parris Island, you can't shout at them anymore or something like that?
No, it's so you care about the perception of your organization. If you're a good leader, you care.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
You absolutely care. And these individuals are all a part of your organization. So their actions are a reflection of that organization.
So did you, is we get to the point where you're reading these evaluations, exit comments or whatever, and
Yes.
they're good?
Yes, absolutely. Or we didn't have any anymore. Because the only time people say anything is usually when there's something bad to say.
Oh, I thought this was something you ask people to do on their way.
They do. You ask people to provide a survey on their way, an exit survey on their way out. Not in my office, but we were at a school, so students would. And rarely would they comment because everything was at some point, it just got to the point where, yes, but if they were particularly displeased, they would write a comment and we would get a copy of that comment. But at some point, after about 6 months, we would either get good comments or none at all.
And would you take no comment as good?
Absolutely. Because at that point, people put more effort when they're unhappy than when they are really pleased. When people were happy, they would actually come by and say to me, hey, thank you very much. Corporal such and such took good care of me. This person did a great job. So people would actually come in at that point and provide us with comments. And I would also give them, you have to give people, I want to say like hard data. So we would have what's called a timeliness report. Mm-hmm. And it gets a grade. It says how proficient you are during this particular month. So,
do you track that month on month?
You track it month by month. So it's all based on the standard. That the Marine Corps standard says you need to be at 80% timeliness. So how fast are we getting things done and how efficient are we?
Can it happen that your workload develops to the place where you don't have the staff to keep that level of proficiency?
Not necessarily, because we were staffed appropriately and our customer base was routinely the same. So I would give them the numbers every month and say, okay, last month we were here, this month we're here, where we're growing. And I would tell them our goal is 96%. And there were times when we met 100%.
Wow.
We were at 99%. And you see, they would get fired up. That energized them.
That's interesting. You know, whenever I'm in a restaurant and I see the health rating certificate, cleanliness at 100%, I figure there's some payola going on here. Some palms have been greased.
Yeah, they're probably at 100% as they should be.
That's good.
Yes. But that would get them, at that point, they know what those numbers mean about their job and what they're doing. And that caused them to work more diligently because they were shooting for that. They wanted that 100%.
Now, does the Marine Corps still give proficiency and conduct marks for?
Oh, yes.
And so this kind of thing you're talking about could actually help a Marine get in line for promotion.
Yes, absolutely. Because you perform well, you're doing your job, then that's when we recognize, you for meritorious promotion and give you additional responsibilities. And so that's the art of leadership is how do I build culture and environment of excellence where my Marines want to achieve excellence.
That's great. Man, so, and a lot of, among the junior enlisted you worked with, did a fair proportion of them stay in for a whole career, or did they go back to civilian life?
Yeah, there are several who I've been able to stay in contact with. Some have become chief loan officers.
No.
Some, they decided to get out and do other things. I work with civilian employees. A lot of them are still serving in that capacity. And several have retired from the Marine Corps.
This is sort of anecdotal, but my dad was in the Marine Corps. I'm sorry, in the Air Force.
Oh, okay.
And when I got to the Marine Corps, I realized people who stay in the Marine Corps and retire tend to stay in for a lot longer than the Air Force people do, who tend to do 20 and get out.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed that? Well, being a Marine, you might not have had much experience with the Air Force, but you did. You started out, didn't you start out?
I wanted to be in the Air Force.
Yeah.
But, I was so, the Air Force just seemed, the recruiter, I'm not bad-mouthing the Air Force. He was just kind of type B.
Sure, got you. Yeah.
I had to call him.
Really?
To follow up on things. And in my mind, even at, 17 or 18 years old, I was thinking, I'm a warm body. You don't have to work for this. I'm ready to go. And he just
didn't seem like he cared.
He didn't seem, like that was the priority. But the Marine was my recruiter. He was my Marine recruiter. He cared. He I don't know, if he's concerned about making quota or anything like that. But regardless, it made me feel like I want you.
Can enthusiasm be faked and still come across as enthusiasm?
Not for long.
Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah, I think you're right about that. It's something you just notice that there's something phony here.
Yes.
So this Marine was enthusiastic.
Consistently.
Yeah.
Yes, consistently. And he cared. He knew some of my story and that my mom had passed away. So he wasn't, he's like, okay, we're not, I'm not trying to make you go and dig up documents and all this stuff. He was very to me, just on point. And I like that.
Chief Warrant Officer 5, Sequoia Aldridge. Thank you. It's been a Pleasure meeting you, and it's a great conversation.
Okay, Jim, you also. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you.